Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Embodying the Logos. Today, I am joined by Gage. We met on Twitter, and I made a comment about the usage of the word opposites. Opposites have been floating around, at least me, for a while, like probably over a year. We had the whole thing around opponent processing. Which we've been providing an alternative for, which is cooperative processing. And yeah, all of this is turning around this idea that if you're in opposition, you're providing a certain contrast. You're shaping the world in a certain way, right? That invites certain optionalities, certain ways of thinking. And when you frame things as cooperative processing or cooperation or union, you are in a different mindset. And before we started recording, Gage was talking about how we are viewing the world, right? Like, so, like it's I think related to something really fundamental in the way that our experience gets formed. And I also mentioned the idea of hermeneutics of suspicion, the interpretation as well. Like I would argue that it's based in fear, right? Like it's relating to the threat of untruth or betrayal or whatever, where your suspicion is trying to make safe that which comes at you, and I think when we frame things as opponents, I think we're also engaging in that pattern. So like that's maybe where I want to start this conversation from, Gage. So like maybe you can start with giving a definition of what opposites and opposition and what that all is and why it is important.
Yeah, so I mean, I think one of the things that I find useful in terms of gaining spiritual insights is to think about things in terms of their opposites. I think that you can understand a thing partly by understanding that which is opposite to it, and things don't always have just one opposite. Opposites make reference to some sort of a unifying third in order for you to understand what an opposite is. And oftentimes that's intuited largely before it's made sense of. And so, for example, there's you could have, a husband and a wife who are opposites, and there's a unifying third, which is the marriage that unites them. And so rather than them being stuck in, I know you mentioned the term adversarial processing, they can in some sense coexist in a form of cooperation. And I believe in many ways that the world often phenomenologically lays itself out to us in opposites. And this creates an issue where we, in some sense, have to, how do we find the way in which the other is in relation to us? And this kind of opens up a problem, and I think it's a problem that is a thread that runs through the Bible in terms of what the Bible is exploring.
Okay, so I heard two different oppositions, right? So we were talking about the inside and the outside earlier, right? Which is something that's defined by an essence, and then which is not the essence, right? So there's a hard boundary between the identity and the non-identity.
Yep.
Husband and wife, which is different than man and woman, right? Like they're already defined by the marriage, right? So,
right.
But just apart from
Well, I was
that,
using
right?
that as an easier example because it gets
like
more
I get it,
yeah.
right? But husband and wife are, in some sense, like they're in a union, right?
Mhm.
But they're different parts of a union, right? Like they're separate parts,
Right.
and they can't be interexchanged, and like because they're part of marriage, right? Like they're necessary also, right? Like
Right.
they're
Right. Right.
part
Right.
of.
Yeah, it's
So
not just the marriage, it's both the husband and the wife
right.
coexisting in the marriage. Agreed.
So yeah, like do you see the distinction between those two oppositions, at least the way that you frame that?
So yeah, I mean, I think so. So taking something like, because I think you made an important distinction between man and woman, right? Man and woman is what it would look like in a state of opposition
Like
before the thing that can unite them can be discerned.
but why is, like, I've been going through this a couple times with you, and
Yep.
there's some emotion already behind it, but it's like they're in a state of disunion, right? You'd agree with that, right? Like just a
Okay.
man
Yeah.
and a
Right.
woman.
Right.
But why would you call that opposition? Like, this is where I'm really confused.
Well, so the word opposite, is a like literally means to like set against something. So to put something in front of something. So
Mhm.
there's when you can't incorporate, when you don't know at least how, or when you don't see the union that unites them, they're by
Yeah, but you
definition opposing.
no, no,
No, no, no.
okay, so
I'm not speaking in a grand sense. I'm speaking phenomenologically. I'm not
no,
saying that
but
actually in that way.
I'm also saying this is phenomenologically not true, right? Because what you're doing, and this is the same thing that was happening with the marriage, right?
Mhm.
Like, you're presupposing the union,
Yeah,
and
right,
some things don't unite,
right.
right? Like some things don't have a union, right? Which, like, if you would use the word opposition for things that cannot unite, right? Like, I would be more sympathetic to your usage of the word in that sense than things that do unite.
Well, I guess, okay, that based off of that, I would say that it's not clear to us what can and cannot be united. And that's a big part of the problem, right? So, you know, this is complicated kind of at all levels of reality. Is do I interact with another person? Do I, I belong to a group of people and I interacted with another group of people. It's like, I don't know whether we can be united. I don't know, right? It could end in violence with
No,
this
no,
group of
no.
people killing my group of people and my group of killing because we couldn't come to something that could unite us.
No. You can always be united.
Well, I think that in some final sense, of course.
No.
But
But you can
but
enslave yourself to the other. Like, you can always do that.
I understand that, but that isn't apparent in a way for most people.
Okay, but like,
But
I'm
then,
not
but
saying
then
that is good. But I'm just saying, right? Like, yes, right? Like, things can always unite. Um, Also, yes, it's not apparent whether, well, it would be a fruitful union or not, right? Because I think
right.
that's more the question than whether we can, right? Like, like, I don't think that if you enslave yourself, that's a good thing, right? Like, we're trying to pursue the good.
Right, of course.
Um, but I'm I'm finding it something else that's happening, right? Because you are presuming that we need to look for this union.
I think that we move in that direction
Mhm.
often, whether we think to or not.
I
Um,
agree.
and so I'm not sure. I don't know how much. I don't know exactly what you mean by have to. I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know
okay,
that I
okay.
would
So
say that.
let me rephrase what I heard.
Yeah.
Right. So you are basically stating a philosophical problem, right?
Yeah.
Can A and B become C?
Right.
Right? Which,
Right.
which is marriage, effectively, right?
Yeah. Right. Right.
Can we? But then, and so there's effectively you're stating that is good as well. Like, do you agree?
When a marriage, when A and B can be united in C, I do think that's good.
But what if that's not always good?
Then I don't think it produces anything new. I don't think there is a C. I think it's just a
I
A B
agree.
mashup.
No. But that is my question, right?
Okay.
Because what like the point that I want to get into is like it takes effort for A and B to come together, right?
Agreed. Oh, agreed. Yeah.
Okay, so and that means that A is not combining with D, C, like D, E, whatever, right? Like there's a trade-off. If you put in that effort, you're not putting it into something else.
Maybe. I'm not sure about that, but
No, definitely. Like
why?
you only have limited time, energy, and attention,
Okay, but
right?
I can also I can have I guess I just don't understand how that applies at all levels. If I can have friendships with multiple people and I can put effort into them. I can
Yeah.
a
Well,
bond
I was
bond
on a
can
date
form
with
with one
someone.
friend while also me putting effort into bonding with another. Of course, there's a limit to that, but I don't think it's restricted to one bond.
Well, but like I was on a date with someone, and at a certain point, like I got said like, "How do you feel about polyamory?" And I'm like, "I'm not okay with that."
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. I don't agree with it at the marital level because but I do
But
think it
but
can
but
be
do
the
you
case at
get
the
the
friendship
point
level.
that I'm making? Then
What's that?
do you get the point that I'm making?
I do, but the
So what's
pattern has
can
to.
you can you can you argue the point that I'm making then? Like
So
why am I?
it seems like you're explaining how if you were to in some sense try and get C, right?
Mhm.
If you're A and the other is B and you want to form C by the union, then you have to devote a certain amount of attention that you have a limited amount of towards that effort and attention devoted towards B so that C can emerge.
Mhm. And it will change you, right? Like it's not only attention, right? Like you will become a different person as a consequence of doing that.
Transformation, right, right.
Right. Okay.
Agreed.
So that sounds like something really dangerous, actually. Don't you agree? Like
I'm
you
in
don't
I'm in
you don't.
agreement.
Okay. So this is actually a high cost activity.
Yes.
Okay. So then, in order for us to make this dedication, I think our concern should not be on whether that union is possible, but on whether we want to invest in that cost into that activity.
Distinguish those two a little bit more.
Well, like if I'm married, right, then I might be investing a whole lot of time and energy and attention in my wife that I could spend more efficiently anywhere else,
Right.
right? So I made a dedication to her that I'm actually going to do that.
Right.
Okay.
But
So
I have faith in the potential that can be actualized.
yeah, sure, right. You need all of those. You need to have faith. She needs to have faith. All
Right.
of that.
Right.
I totally agree. But also, right, like you better damn well make sure that you choose the right woman, because like if
Right.
right.
Yeah.
And I think that's the question that you're asking, right? Like, am I choosing the right woman? Like, is this
Correct. Yeah.
union
Right.
possible?
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
100%.
But first you have to decide that you want to get married, and then you can start worrying about which woman to pick.
Okay.
Right. So what? In other words, there's a decision that precedes this question, right? And that decision is, okay, marriage is good, right? Or doing this is good,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now we're in a different situation because now we've defined the good,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, no, we don't actually know how the marriage is like and how it's going to be like, right? But
Course,
like
right.
we have a standard that we can start
Measure, right.
working towards. Yeah. Well, not measure, because standards are actually things that you follow, right? Like there's a banner that like it's not a scientific thing.
No, I didn't mean quantitatively.
Yeah, okay. But,
Yeah.
but measure is quantitatively, right? So we now have defined the good, right? And now we can say, okay, like for example, like I'm having my YouTube channel and I'm having this interaction with you on Twitter, and it's like, okay, like what am I going to do, right? Like I want to have the interaction, right? And then it's like, okay, but now that interaction needs to serve what I want to do with my YouTube channel, right? And it also needs to serve the both of us, right? Like we need to come out of this. So
there's nesting purposes, right?
Right. But am I concerned with whether we get agreement or not? Right? Whether we can come together? No. Because I don't think that's necessary to do the good.
No, of course not.
Okay. So I'm trying to, if we now step back to the opposite, right? It's like my purpose in being with you is not opposing you. Right? Because I don't have a bone in that fight. Like I have a bone in getting to the truth, right? Like you can come with me or you can stay where you are. Like that's up to you. But I want to go there. And I can tell you, right, the way that we can make A plus B C is that you also go to the truth. And that's the only way.
So I think, though, that pursuit of the truth, there, of course, has to be an opposite to that, right? I mean, to determine whether something is good or not, right, means you also have to be able to identify what's bad.
No.
Because by saying you're saying something's good, as opposed to something else.
No.
So, okay, so help me understand how, when, let's say
That's
you're
why I
dating.
said standard, right?
Let's say you're dating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned the woman that suggested polyamory.
Mm-hmm.
You deemed her bad for marriage, which is fine. But that's
No.
No,
Like,
you don't think?
Okay. Like, I actually wrote an article on this, and I need to publish this soon, right? But you're making a confusion between first and second order effect, right? So when I walk, right, I choose to go to where I'm walking towards, right? So that's a first order effect. Like now, a bunch of things happen as a consequence, right? Like if there's a woman on the side that I'm passing and I'm interacting with, and she doesn't walk with me, that doesn't mean that I did any judgment on her, right? Because I'm still walking on the path.
I get that, but I think I worry in some sense that there's part of this that we're talking past one another. Like I understand the premise, the primacy of the good. I'm not making a dual argument. I'm not making an argument for dualism.
I'm saying, right, that all I need to know when walking is the standard that I go to.
But agreed.
And so the second order effects, right, are things that happen as a consequence of me going there, right? So either like that woman might have picked up and started walking with me and become my wife, or she doesn't. But that has nothing to do with me, because I just keep walking that road. And
But
I'm just waiting.
even in that language, she does or she doesn't. We're already in the realm of
That's up to
opposite.
her. That has nothing to do with me.
Maybe it doesn't, but it's still the way you literally categorize things as not my wife and my wife.
Yes. So there is things that adhere to the standard, right?
Right.
Like there's, and that can be a plurality of things, right?
Of course, right.
Right. So I don't have only one expression, right? Like I have a lot of expressions that still go towards the standard. Like that's important, an important point, right? Like it's not. And so, secondly, right, she can be in one of those pluralities of expression, right? Like there's a space for her. Like there's something that opens up. But like that's not in opposition with me. That's like those things are separate. Like they're separated.
I guess I'm still trying to understand how, like, because I understand what you're saying in terms of this primacy of the good, and how in some sense the good is the thing from which you
Anything
use.
gets an identity, right?
Right, of course, right.
Okay.
All identity comes from God.
Right.
But I guess my concern is it doesn't seem like there's a real reckoning with the way that the world lays itself out to us in our disconnect from the good. Right? Because, like, I see in some sense part of what you're presenting is in some sense, I agree with all of it. But I feel like there is a way in which it is important to consider, given the fact that we are not in accordance with the good, that there is a different perspective that we take on. So this is why, in the tweets.
Okay. I'll entertain that. Right. Okay. So we've established the ideal, and you're in agreement. Right, with the ideal. Okay. So now there's like, okay, but I'm not there. Right. Like that's effectively.
Yeah. I don't know the good. I don't know the good.
Right. Well, yes. Yeah. Well, yeah. No, that is a problem.
Right.
Right. And that even if we recognize the problem, it's not immediately solved.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Like, and in some sense, that is a burden, right? Because like, oh wow, like I know, I know that it is possible, or whatever, or it could be possible, and I'm not there, which sucks, right? Because now you're like, oh, I'm this fallen creature. So what do we do in this fallen state? Now, I would argue, right, that first of all, like we should have this conception that we've been circling around now, right, with the standard, and basically Christianity claims that Christ is that standard, right, and he will show us the goodness and the truth in things, right. So now we also have a path towards recognizing that for us. Well, can we do that? No, because like we have scales in front of our eyes, right? Like we're blind.
Right.
And Christ is veiled to us as well, in some sense, right? And like he has to be, right? Because like basically what you're saying is, well, yeah, if I look at that, like that burns me, right? Like right, that's too bright. Like I can't do that, right?
Right.
Which is true, right? Like I also can't do that. Right? Like I'm also a human being, and I also sin, right? So like now we're in this sinful state, and your proposal, and like you need to flesh this out a little bit, is like, why is this opposite talk necessary for this fallen state?
Well, I don't know that I'm making an argument of necessity. I'm making an argument of pointing to what is. Not in some final sense, not in some ideal sense, but what is.
What is in your experience, or what is in heaven?
What is in my experience?
Okay. But your will be done on earth as is in heaven, right? So
Right.
why are you pointing at not heaven if that's not the will that needs to be done?
But again, we have to go back to, how do you determine what is the good?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we don't have an answer to that question, then that what you said doesn't necessarily matter. Because
No, only if you want to be perfect.
well, no, I think though, in some sense, like you said, with the walking on the path,
Mm-hmm.
you have to know the destination and you have to know the path.
Well, I would argue that no.
So how can you
no to either.
So then how can you determine whether you're moving toward it?
But you pray every moment that you can.
Okay, but how did you even determine that?
Well,
I'm not trying to trap you, by the way. I'm not
No,
again.
no. Well, okay. You know the word praying means to ask, right?
Right.
Okay. So, like, how do you determine? Well, like that. Well, that can only follow from the recognition that you can't do it by yourself because, like,
Right.
you don't know.
But many
Like,
think they can do it by themselves.
right. I agree.
So they're confused about the good and they're blinded towards being able to see that they need to ask, they need to pray, and so that they can begin on that journey.
I think the problem is a lot bigger than that.
Oh, okay, I'll give you that. I'm simplifying it. Fair enough. Fair enough.
No, because I don't think they're confused. I don't think they see it at all.
Okay. Well, you don't think they participate in it at all?
Well, they participate in it, but not because they see it.
Okay. I guess it's not obvious to me that you either see it or don't see it.
Oh, it is to me.
Okay.
Like
And,
I think
that goes back
like
to the boundary thing. I think there's levels of participation. I
mm-hmm.
think there's things on the edge. So
but it's really there's two options, right? Like either you're focused on God or you're focused on yourself.
But then here we are again in the realm of opposites. Like you're either focused in, like you said, you're either focused on God or focused not on God. Those are the options. Option coming from the, like, opposite and option come from the same. There's in some sense a setting against. So there are those, and this is kind of what I was trying to make, that again, all the opposites you see scaling in some sense. It's like, okay, you see the cross, right? Opposites, and then you see the two thieves, one who, there's again the benediction and the judging, and then you have the apostle to the Gentiles, you have the apostle to the Jews. So you have this scaling out from Christ of the opposites in an important way, and it's all pointing to Christ in some sense being the thing, the logos that unites all of the things, so that things, in the way that you were saying before, so that things can cooperate together rather than remaining adversarial. And so that's in some sense how, at least I see, how Christ in some sense solves the problem of the division of things, right? Because it's Satan who scatters, and Christ is the shepherd.
You're still stuck with the same problem.
What do you mean?
Right, like, and Christ faced this problem when he was preaching. I was like, well, there's just people who don't have faith. They don't have ears to hear. Like these people existed then and they're existing now, and Christ is not solving that.
So do you think Christ can't solve the problem of people? I don't understand what you're saying. Like, people who don't have faith
need to choose faith. They have to come to it by themselves.
Okay, but there's also a drawing forward. There's a removing the veil from the eyes.
Only if they're looking.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's a complicated question.
No. But this is what
But
the opposition that you were pointing towards, right? Is like if you're focused on yourself, right?
yeah,
Which is like I mean that not necessarily in a narcissistic way, although
it can lead
definitely
there. Yeah, no, right.
no. Well, it definitely is narcissism, right? But
Okay.
it's
Yeah, I
in a
understand what you mean.
weird way, right? Like it's self-worship eventually, right?
Yeah,
Because
right.
you're the
Okay.
judge, right? Like
Yeah,
because like it's self-reference, right? Like it's the snake eating its own tail.
correct. Right.
And the other position is that you have an other reference, right? And you could say, well, like there's different stages, like polytheism or something, right? Where there's an other reference that's not going towards the ultimate union, right? Like the
Yep.
creator.
Right.
But yeah, let's just ignore that part, right? Like you have an other reference that basically means that you're conforming to a divine will, right? And like I don't think those things are necessarily in opposition to your will, right? But your personal will is not completely aligned with that will, right? And so our task is to pursue that alignment, and either you're on that journey or you're not.
But again, I don't understand how that isn't.
You can cast it as an opposition, right? But
Mhm.
okay, so like the problem I have with the word opposition, right, is
Okay.
that in order to have things opposed, you have to draw a line, right, where they can stand.
Yeah, of course, right.
Okay, like why are you drawing the line?
Because you see because you intuit that there's a way in which they participate together somehow.
Okay, but then don't draw the line.
Why?
No, like you're taking an action, right?
Yeah.
If you do an action, you have to justify the action because else it's an illegitimate action, right?
Okay.
So how do you justify an action? Well, you justify it by its purpose,
Okay.
right? So when you draw a line, I'm not saying never draw lines, right? Like I draw lines
No,
all
no,
the time, right? But like why? Why do you draw the line? Like how is the drawing of the line good? Right? Like, and if you say, well, okay, like I need to draw this line because it's good, then we can talk about whether it's good. And then if I agree that it's good, then it's like, okay, we should draw that line.
Can you give me an example, like of what you mean by in terms of drawing the line in like a real life scenario?
Well, for example, a border, right, of a country is a line,
Okay.
right? And this line is drawn, and like you can see it in like all these postmoderns are like, well, borders shouldn't exist, right? And they're right in some sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like because effectively what they're doing is what you want are doing, right? Like, oh, like these borders, these create these oppositions, and like they're kind of arbitrary, and like they have
Right.
these things that are no longer valid because they're from the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, yeah, kinda, but also like you need to have borders. You can't have no,
Of course. Right.
right? So it's like now it's just like, okay, like where do we draw the border? And it's like,
That's a
okay,
good question.
like yeah, exactly. That's a good question. And it's like, well, you draw borders based upon what you value, right?
Fair. Yep.
Okay. So it's like, okay, is the country something that I live in that I value? Well, for me it is. Maybe for them it's not. But also, like, why are you in the country? Right? Like get out if you don't value the country. And that's like so what, like there's a binding yourself to something that's pre-existing you, right? And that's bigger than you, right?
Of course.
That has these borders, and these borders, they are constraints, right? It's like, oh, like if I cross the border, like I need to show my passport, blah blah blah, right? But also they are protected, right? Like the people within that border are cared for in a certain way by partaking in the nation.
Right.
And so like you can argue all you want about whether yes or no or like what way or, but it's necessary, right? Like you can't not have it. Like
Right.
you need to have these things.
They
And like
emerge naturally, even when they're deconstructed.
right. And the way that they emerge is usually not a pleasant way.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I
Well,
mean,
no, but that's why it's satanic, right? Like when we cast these oppositions without being embedded in a bigger game, right? Then we get war.
Right. This is why again, I'm not casting the opposites. I still feel like maybe not, and that maybe that's my bad. I'm not presenting it well. I don't, I'm not trying to endorse in any way that all I'm trying to say is that I think opposites are a helpful way to understand the way in which you no longer see them that way. Like there's a really important way in which if you don't start with the fact, right, that there's this country and then there's this other country who have different values and there's this border between them and there's a possibility of war. If you don't start with that, then it's like I don't know exactly where.
Okay. So is your argument that okay? So like we take a walk and we go to the border and like okay, like there's a border here, and now I need to realize why that is valuable, and therefore I need to cast the opposition. Is that what you're saying?
I need to, in some sense, assess the landscape, right? I need to understand, I need to initially understand to kind of use the inside outside thing, or like we can use the borders as an example of countries. Like I need to know what's on the inside and what's on the outside.
Why?
So I need to know what is me, what adheres to my identity, and that which is other. We can even use the word other. I'm fine with that.
But for real, like I want you to answer the question: why do you need to know this?
Why do you need to know this? Because then,
for what purpose?
Well, so if I don't know where the border of my country is, it'll fragment me. I won't have. I won't know where my identity starts and ends.
Like you've lived your whole life without knowing that. Like why would you need to know it now?
I do know.
No. I mean, like if you say you have a need to know, that means that you don't know already, right? So I'm stating that if you don't know already, you've lived your whole life without knowing, and you've been fine, I hope.
Okay, let's take an example in terms of then. Let's make up a scenario in terms of, I may have known at one point, and then now there was whatever that border was blurred for some sort of a geopolitical reason, right?
Okay.
That's now going to cause a breakdown in my country's functioning.
Why?
Right? Because the border's unclear. We don't know. For example, we're extracting some sort of a natural resource. We don't know whether that belongs to the
like I get it, right? But why is this your problem?
But okay, we were just talking at a national scale.
Yes, I'm in agreement that someone in the government needs to know this. Okay, like I agree. Okay. Why does this have to be you?
It doesn't need to be me at the nation state level, but that's where the level we were talking about. I can apply this at the individual level.
But it's important, right? Because like, why does the person at the nation state level need to know? Because they want to get the resources, right? That's why.
Right, but it all trickles down too. I mean, the resources affect me by me being a virtue of being a citizen of that country, and so it's not just indirectly related.
Yeah, but you don't need to know anything about that.
But I do, in the sense that I have to know that the whole it's like if I'm not in some sense connected to that participation, then
but you're connected by being in the country, right?
Right, and I may be suffering negative consequences as a result.
Okay,
And so
fine. So still, why do you need to know?
okay, if I'm suffering negative consequences, I'm going to start asking questions. Why is
No,
the
you don't have
resources
to.
why okay, like why, let's say it was a farm. It's like, why are the vegetables not coming to me anymore? Why is there a shortage of vegetables? I might not be able to feed my family. And so now I start asking questions, and now I start wondering, now I'm entering into the realm of opposites, which is why the realm of opposites is associated with it was associated with exile, because it's when the identity breaks down and you're thrown into exile, and now you're in the realm of opposites.
Okay. So you're saying we need to know these things in a state of crisis.
Yes, correct. Okay. Which is why the fall is the state from which you see things in opposites. Because the fall is the advent of the state of crisis. Right? Because you tried to take a fruit, you tried to take something, and you tried to put it in, and it didn't belong in there. You took the fruit and you tried to make what was outside inside, and now you are exiled out of the garden, and now you're in the realm of opposites, because now you need to know where borders are, where when you were in the garden, you don't need to know. It's like the nation. It's like, if I'm getting my vegetables from this area, it's like you said, I don't need to know. But as soon as the vegetables don't come and I'm in a state of crisis, like, I need to know what because
well,
now
you need to know things, right? Like I'm still disputing whether you need to know about that farm and the border and anything. Because
I don't have the answer for you in that situation, but I do know that I
have
to know something. I have
to
start asking questions.
I totally agree with that, right? Like, that's the crisis means that
Right.
which was like it's like a flood, right? Like
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
flooded, right? And you have to find new dry ground. Like, completely agree, right? And like, the new dry ground also implies new borders, right?
Right.
So yes, in total agreement. Still, pointing back towards that one farm, still don't think that farm is necessary, right?
What do you mean, the farm itself, or knowing
right? Because like, you have a resource, right? Like, this is why I was talking about the multiple paths to the standard, right? And so there's two options, right? Like, if you walk on your path and your path gets blocked by a rock, right? Like, you can walk around it, or you can try and go through it. And like, I don't know which one is better, right? Like, probably sometimes you have to go through and sometimes you walk around, right? Like if it's a really big rock, you don't want to walk around. Like, you might want to go through. So, and you don't know, right? Like you don't know what's on your path. So, but when you say, right, like, I have to deal with that farm, or like with the boundary on the farm, right? Like, you're picking one option, right? Like you're collapsing the paths, or the potential routes that you could take onto one, and that's what putting things in opposition does, right? Like, you collapse the option space, and now you're constraining yourself to a part of reality, right? And what that is implicitly also doing is it's cutting you off from miracles.
Cutting you off from what?
Miracles.
How do you mean?
Right. Well, so what is a miracle, right? Like, a miracle is that which is outside of the frame.
Yep.
Coming in.
Okay.
And throwing everything around, right? Because, like, something happens that you didn't believe was possible before.
Yeah.
Right. And so like how does God help us? Well, like, by interceding in that way. Now, we like, there's this story about the guy who's on the roof, right? And he's there's a flood.
Yeah, I know this one. Yeah.
Right.
And then he, at the end, he goes, why didn't you come and send something?
Right.
Right.
And so this whole point is like you have to be open to being safe, right? And
yeah, but if you're open to it, then it's within your frame to some extent.
no, it's not.
How not? If you're open to, because you were saying that you're in this the miracle is in some sense an entering into the frame from the outside.
Yes.
But if you remain open to something, then the frame isn't closed.
Yeah, but it's still outside of the frame.
But if the frame is open, there is no outside and inside.
No, there is.
Well, if something's open,
If you have open borders, you still have borders.
I don't think that's clear.
No,
if
it is.
If you at all
because if you
levels have open borders, then you don't have borders.
No, because right, like if someone, like for example, we take the Mexican-American border, right, and if America says, okay, we open the borders, right, and then Mexico says, okay, we just go land. Well, like Israel actually literally did that, right? They went 1 kilometer into Gaza and it flattened the whole thing to have a zone of control. Right. So basically, they extended their borders for 1 kilometer.
Yeah, but we're talking in some sense that they just asserted a border. It doesn't mean that the border actually changed.
But that's what happens when like no. The border change. Like where's the border? Is the border the thing that someone drew on a map, or is the border the thing that the soldier stands guard at? Because like I'm gonna go with the soldier. Like you can draw all the things.
But then you're making an argument that a thing only is because it was asserted and dominated, which I don't think is the case.
No, it is.
So you think so? Okay, but you see, you run into a problem there. So let's say Belgium decides to invade the Netherlands and now controls the Netherlands. Are you just going to say, well, it's owned by the Netherlands now, or it's owned by Belgium now? Or are you going to say, no, I'm going to fight back, or we're going to do something about this? We're going to have to try to come to some negotiation.
That happened with Germany in the Second World War.
Right, and you wouldn't, and no,
and there was
the answer wasn't to just say, oh, it's Germany's now.
No, there was a bunch of people who did do that.
Right, but do you think that that's the right answer? I'm asking you.
But it depends. Like it can be. Like
okay, right, it can, but I don't think
right,
that's
like that's Russia's claim in the Donbass and in Crimea, right? Like basically they're claiming, well, like yeah, these people, they want to be controlled by Russia, and I think they're right.
But the point comes down to is if we're talking about this participation in the good, right? Then we get like what we're talking about right now seems like more something like a will to power, which I think is not the same thing as a participation in the good. And so, for example, there is a determining of where it is good that the border lies, right? And so
can you repeat that? My brain couldn't handle that.
Yeah, sorry. So we have to determine where it is good that we draw a border, right?
Only if we draw borders.
Well, but we do draw borders. I mean, I don't know. There's no, like you said earlier, there's no way around that. Borders are going to exist. We can't.
Right, but they're already drawn.
Okay, but they can be redrawn. I mean, like none of these things are.
But then we're creating a crisis if we redraw borders.
But again, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's dumb.
No, I'm saying that's bad. Like I am.
I don't really care whether it's good or bad. I guess because again, my whole thing is not predicating that the problem of opposites is not like, I'm not trying to make an argument whether it's good or bad, because that actually just casts you back into the realm of opposites. We're trying to get out of the realm of opposites, which is what I thought that in some sense you were trying to bring out. Because basically good and bad, if we only classify, we have to understand how things in some sense can come together. How can things be resolved in an important way?
No, like here you're doing it again. Okay, right? So this is fascinating, because what you're implicitly saying, right, is that there's a resolution, right? So A and B make C, and that we have to find that. What if I tell you that there's no resolution?
I don't think there are resolutions for everything.
Okay, well then sometimes we shouldn't do that then.
Right, but we don't. But again, this goes back to, I don't think we know which things we should do that for and which things we shouldn't. And
But
I think
Chesterton's fence, right?
Chesterton's fence.
Yeah, like there's a fence somewhere, and like the progressive people, they're like, wait, why is there a fence? Like the
Oh
fence
yeah,
is
right.
blocking a bunch of shit.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
just get rid of it. And the
So
conservative people are like, no, like there's a fence, someone put it there. Let's leave it.
okay, but what do you mean in terms of that? Exactly.
Well, like I think the conservatives are right.
Okay. So wait, can you try and connect that to what I was saying? Because I don't know that.
Well, like what I'm saying is that the conservative position is the right position, right? You conserve whatever there is to conserve, unless you have a purpose, right? And that purpose demands change.
But
right?
That's usually. I don't want to get caught up on some sort of a like conservatism versus liberalism, because I don't know that that's going to be fruitful.
I'm not. No, it's not liberalism, because liberalism is a whole different kind of word. I'm talking about progressivism.
All right, progressivism, right?
Right, because when you're pursuing a union, right? And like I've been hearing Hegel a lot in you, right? Like Hegel is the synthesis, right? Like you try to achieve synthesis, right? And Marx took that up, right? Like so that's going towards the communist ethic, right? Like it's trying to gather everything up into one.
Okay,
right?
but right, there's an inverted form of that, and then there's the good form of that. There's the good shepherd who will gather the nations together, and they shall worship God from every tongue and nation.
Okay, but you know that Christ said that like he had his herd, and then he had sheep all around the world, right?
Right.
So he's making a proclamation that his herd is bigger than his boundary, right?
Yeah, right.
Right. And then, like when I was reading that, I was like, yeah, sure, but how do they have identity? Right? Because they're not all his sheep, right? Like there's his sheep and then there's not his sheep, but they're not in his boundary. So like, how does that work? Like what are these lost sheep, right? Like how do you know that they're from Christ? And you know what the answer is?
What?
They hear him, they listen to him.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
So
there's a demonstrable way from which you can discern.
Right. So the union is by voluntary adherence.
Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking about Christ gathering up into him, right, it's the voluntary adherence that is doing the gathering. It's not
Agreed.
the imposition of the boundary.
I'm not arguing for an imposition. I want to make that clear.
No, I get it, but when you say there's two ways, right? Like the Hegelian way, right, or the Marxist way, is basically it's doing the thing that I was talking about with the self-referential will of the human, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the level of the nation, right? So it's like, oh, because the nation wants it, or because the people want it, then we have to assert this boundary, right?
Okay.
And it's not because of it's God's will; it's because of the people's will, right?
Right.
Like this
right.
is But like this is the problem with democracy, right? Like you're just gonna assert what's
Right,
in
right,
fashion.
exactly, right.
Okay.
So, again, I'm not. Maybe I'm trying to think about how, because I'm in some sense trying to say the opposite of that. I'm trying to say that I'm trying to say that asserting the synthesis is a problem. And so when we try to, because I agree with everything you said, you laid that out very well regarding the voluntary way in which Jesus gathers, as opposed to the way you can say something like an antichrist would gather. The antichrist
Mhm.
would gather through compulsion in something that looks like a
Well,
communist
or
state.
fear, right?
Or fear, right, right, right. But it's a way that isn't that voluntary love, that voluntary drawing that you're alluding to, right?
Right. Harmony, right? Like you resonate, right? Like you participate in the same pattern, right? Like
Yes,
you're singing praises in the same
yeah,
way.
exactly. It's like a Pentecost is a great image of this, because it's like all the different tongues are contributing to one whole. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's not this is an important aspect also about diversity. Is it's like the progressive move towards lifting diversity as the highest thing creates this type of compulsion around diversity, right? We have to put all these things together that don't have
Hmm.
a higher unity that unites them, right? There's no good shepherd. So it's like we're going to push all these things that are other without it being voluntary.
Hmm.
And that creates, I mean, it's the problems of that in some sense trickle all the way down.
Yeah, it creates non-identity, right?
Right, right.
But
It's a serious problem in terms of trying
but
to force or speed up this process from which Jesus is gathering his flock.
but like, are you aware of James Lindsay? Because he's
James
talking
Lindsay.
about how all of this stuff is actually Marxism, right? Like this is all Marxist ideology, and
What
it's
I just
just
said,
been,
or
yeah, like that's
I'm
that's
arguing against that.
no, I get it,
Oh,
but the point is, right? Like this is all Marxist ideology gone to the cultural level, right? Like
right,
so,
right, right. But
it's
again, I'm
taken.
not really as interested in Marxism.
No,
Marxism
no,
doesn't really
but
matter to
I
me.
am because it's I think it's important, right? Like so what's happening is like this framing, right? Like this gathering, like that's an eternal pattern, right?
Mhm.
And I think it's, well, I know it's satanic, right? Like that's why the Marxists,
But I agree with you. I agree with you. We're in agreement
right,
on that.
right. And so if if you say that like I don't think the assertion is the problem, right? Like I think the spirit in which you do the assertion is the problem. So like if the Pope says something, right, and he's um asserting the will of God, right, then everybody should just be happy with that.
Right, but he's a I'm not drawing problem with just assertion as such, but there's obviously assertion that is not appealing towards the good.
Hmm. Which is
And
satanic.
right, that's what I'm trying to distinguish between. So with why I have a problem with I'm just going to use you're talking about it in terms of this communist frame, right? This compulsion to try and see things not as opposites is in some sense to try and push things together that are not that you can't push things together that are not ready to go together, right? Like this is the same thing. This is the problem with the fruit. It's like you can't.
But hold on, like why do you think I'm doing that?
No, no, I don't think you're doing that. I'm
Okay,
explaining. I'm
okay,
explaining the issue more generally.
okay, but why do you think, if I'm not doing that and I'm professing that you should strive towards the union under God or whatever, then like what is the position that you're arguing against?
Well, I think I told you on Twitter. I actually think we agree. I think it's just part of it is trying to grope together using the right language.
Huh?
I
Yeah, yeah,
I would be surprised if we ultimately disagree. Honestly, I really would.
okay,
But
but can you answer my question? Like, what is it that you're arguing
but I'm
against?
not arguing against. That's what I'm saying. Like
Okay.
I think we agree. We're just trying to figure out how. I mean, that's what I
Yeah,
think.
but
Maybe you
okay,
think
but
otherwise.
why do I think you were arguing against?
Well, I think it's because I think it's partly because I see I'm gonna use the word existing in the realm of opposites, right?
Mhm.
As a means of preventing the type of satanic communist spirit and allowing us to wait. So there's a really important idea of the Bible in terms of waiting, and like I don't know how much you
Mhm.
a lot of the things I'm bringing up are I don't know how much you follow Mathieu Pajot. Um, I a lot of my tweets are in some sense a lot of trying to explore and explicate on his works, and so
Mhm.
um, I guess I may be wrongly. Most of the people that like follow me and comment on my things are in that kind of sphere, and so if you weren't, I didn't mean to. Maybe
No,
that.
I read his book. Like I
Um,
haven't. I actually I have not really engaged with his tweets because I don't see the value in them
okay,
much. Like
yeah,
he's
yeah, that's fine.
like sometimes he says amazing things, right? But like this chemtrail and this what is it, like this conspiracy theory stuff. Like I just like I don't even want
See,
to.
that's because conspiracy theories are in the realm of opposites.
Right. Like
Right,
I did.
right.
Yeah.
And that's why it's very interesting to me, and that's very much the space I feel the need.
I know, and it's also the realm of the rabbit holes and the realm of limbo where you're always lost, wandering, and never finding a home.
Right, right. John the
Right, and
Baptist went out in the wilderness.
there's a reason that people stay there, right? Because it's attractive in a way, like it's appealing to something
For
inside
sure,
of you.
for
Right.
sure. You better not get lost and never be able to
Right.
find your way home. Right, agreed. It's
Right.
dangerous. I'm not saying it's not dangerous, but
But
it's
but
not. I don't think it's bad. Objectively, I don't.
okay.
And so that might be where the core of our disagreement lies. And I think that's why I brought that up in the beginning. Even just, I think, I mean, even kind of what you were talking about with like how you
Okay.
that
I
there
have
aren't
a.
bad.
Do
What
you believe in neutral?
do I believe in neutral?
Mhm.
Um, that's complicated because I don't
Okay.
think
If I add the word lukewarm, does that make more sense?
lukewarm. Um, yeah, I mean, I think it's a category. We use it. It exists. We have a name for it.
Yeah, but okay.
Well, but do you understand how that's
Do you
an
understand
impossible
my
question
point?
to ask? What does that mean? Do you believe in? I don't know. Like
No,
uh,
like I don't believe in neutrality.
right, but
Like I think neutrality is made up. Like you always have a position, right? Like this neutral thing is just a way, like it's Pontius Pilate,
okay.
right? Like
All right. I'll follow
I
this.
wash my hands of this. It's like for real, dude. Like,
No, okay, I'll follow this. I agree with where you're coming from. I do, and I
huh?
actually think this is why I think things appear in opposites. I agree. I think either things are good or things are bad,
Hmm.
and that there is no neutral. That's what I
Okay.
mean by saying that the world lays itself out in opposites. Is that things are good
Okay.
or
Okay.
things that are
Okay.
bad. And I think that the Bible and its fundamental categories are about determining good from bad. It's the ability to discern good from evil, and it's knowing when to hate, knowing when to love, and that in some sense these explorations, and this is what I was before I was bringing up about Mathieu, is he talks about, the idea of you better understand a thing by understanding its opposite, and that an animal ruminates on two hooves because they, in some sense, they're ruminating. They're not doing the satanic thing, which is to try and collapse the opposites into one. They're ruminating. They're letting the tension. I mean, I know you mentioned Vervaeke, right? It's the tonos, right? It's not the poles, it's the polarity. And so it's letting the opposites rest, and you waiting and you ruminate during this period. You act in faith towards Christ, the Logos that can unite things. And that waiting.
But now you did a trick, right?
I'm not trying to trick. I'm really not.
But you made a move, right? Which you're Jesus smuggled, which is pretty cool. Like literally Jesus smuggled. But you said you have the opposites, and then you said you attend towards Christ.
Yeah. Right. I think he's the seed.
Opposites disappear.
Yes. Right.
Okay. So you're not tending towards the opposites. The mistake that you were in was the attention to the opposite. And if you do not attend to them anymore, they dissolve because you have a higher meaning. You have a higher purpose that organizes the hierarchy below it. And if you organize the hierarchy from the highest, the opposition isn't there because it has to unite in the hierarchy.
100% agree.
Okay, then do you see the fallacy?
I see where you're coming from, and I see why you're wanting to draw emphasis to that, and I'm wanting to draw emphasis to the fact that we can't forget what is being dissolved ultimately in Christ, and if we forget that, then
you have to.
No. But
literally, no. I'm dead serious. You have to forget.
I don't think so.
You have to die. You have to die in order to be reborn.
Yes, but you remember. You gather your members back together.
No, you get remembered. You don't remember.
Whether it's okay, fine, I'll give you that. But I still think there's a sense in which there has to be a connection to the old. There has to be a connection to the old.
No, not the connection to the old is a consequence of existing. You're already embedded in the connection to the old.
But that's what I'm pointing to. I'm pointing to the fact that this.
But that's why you need to forgive, right? The forgiveness is the letting go of the old so that the new can exist.
Right, but when you forgive someone, you don't literally forget what they do.
No, you let the thing, right? You let the thing for what it is.
But okay, let's say somebody wrongs me, right? And I forgive them. I still know they did that.
Mm-hmm.
And by knowing that they do that, it makes the forgiveness actually mean something. Because if I just actually forgot it, and if I didn't remember it at all, then the forgiveness is moot. It's not even forgiveness. The forgiveness implies a remembrance to the old. And so what is the Logos? What is the thing that unites if there was never anything that needed, if we forgot that things needed to be united, then what is the point of the uniting? Unite only makes sense in terms of discordance.
No.
But do you understand what I'm saying? You're saying that
we
have to
look to Jesus.
But why are we looking to Jesus if we've now, all of this has been forgotten?
No, but you're inverting. For real. The identity comes from God.
I agree.
Okay. So the discordance is not because anything, it's just that it's not adhering to God. It has nothing to do with anything else.
But it happens. It is. They ate
that's
fruit.
entropy.
I don't know what to do about
that's called entropy. Everything decays, right? That's why we have life. Life is the thing that sustains itself, right? And is generative.
Yeah.
And so the world that we live in, it just decays, right? Like if I don't eat, then like I will die.
Correct.
So in order for me to adhere to Christ, like I need to partake sustenance.
Right.
So like this has nothing to do with disharmony or whatever. It just has to do with that, like things move in time, right? And they require things.
I think we've reached the limit of how far we're going to come to an agreement, and I'm not sure
Yeah, but
how.
like we don't have to come to an
It
agreement,
just
but like
seems like we're agreeing, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like you think we are, and I think
no. Like I literally think, right? Like when you keep focusing on the disharmony, right? It's like the harmony is the only point. Like
yeah,
there's
but that's not. But do you think that's how the Bible? All the things only focus on the harmony. That's not what I read in the Bible. I read about the disharmony all the time. So many verses are about the disharmony. So many books are about
right
the
to
disharmony.
show you not to be a muppet.
That's what I'm. But that's where I'm coming from. That's where I'm coming from. That the disharmony is not something in and of itself, but that it participates in the good. It serves the good. It's to show you you're a muppet.
No,
so
it
so if
like
but if we don't present it as such, and we just act like it doesn't exist, and we act like we forgot it, and we just say Christ, but Christ is, if Christ is truly the Logos, he's the through line through all of it. Christ is not just at the top of the hierarchy, he's also the hierarchy itself in an important way. Because Christ is in the church, and then he indwells each individual, so it trickles down because it's a seed. And this is what I think in some sense is why the realm of opposites is really important, is it's like Christ is the solution to it, but he's the seed. And what we're doing right now, all of this reality is understanding the implications of this seed, of this good news. And I don't.
but oh, okay. Jesus came as a teacher, right?
Right.
And he had a different kind of teaching. And the teaching was not in the understanding of the implications of the blah, blah, blah. Like that wasn't his teaching.
I don't know. I think so.
No. Like that wasn't his teaching. Like then you're not getting it.
I'm sorry.
Like Jesus was not trying to make a propositional empire.
Understanding doesn't just have to be propositional. I can understand that
Okay,
my wife loves me without it being propositional.
If you have a non-propositional understanding, how's there opposites in the non-propositional understanding?
What do you mean?
No, like I think we got to the point where it's all about. Like, okay, so you have non-propositional understanding. How does non-propositional understanding have opposite?
It doesn't, and that's the move towards the participatory. Participatory is where you find Christ, who takes us out of the realm of opposites. Right.
Okay, so why are you focusing on the opposites?
But so do you think propositions are bad?
No, like I think boundaries are necessary. Right?
That's what I'm saying. Opposites are necessary.
No.
But wait, but I thought you just
no. You're okay. Propositions serve a purpose. Okay, they're servants.
Agree.
Okay, so like we don't focus on the servant.
We don't focus on the servant.
Yeah.
But the servant is part of the whole.
Servant listens to us. They enact our will. But
you're not going to draw attention to the servant?
No, you shouldn't. Like why should you draw attention to the servant?
I feel like that's what Christ does.
No, he doesn't. Like how does he draw attention to the servant?
He's constantly drawing attention to the lower things, the things that are serving above. He's You know,
Give me a direct quote. Like I agree that the things that are below are participating in that which is higher, right? And so they have a relationship to that which is higher.
when Judas or calls out, the using the perfume
Mm-hmm.
to be used on Christ. Christ really he draws attention to the servant in that scene.
Okay.
You don't think so? He's drawing attention.
I don't know what you mean by drawing attention to the servant at that point.
Well, he literally says he blesses her, as opposed to drawing attention elsewhere. He says, no, look to her, or look to the faith of the low thing that's supporting the upper thing. A great image.
He's not pointing to the servant. He's pointing to the faith.
A great image of this is in the Lord of the Rings. At the end, you have everyone bows to Aragorn, the king return, and then Aragorn, says to the four hobbits, you bow to no one, and then they all bow to him. So there's this reciprocal relationship that's really important. So the first shall be last, the last shall be first.
I agree. Like as a master, you have to take care of your servant, right?
Right.
Like, yes, you have to take care of them, but that doesn't mean that you would pay attention to them. Like that's a different thing.
I don't know I guess I don't understand the difference between taking care and paying attention. I think those, in some sense, are rooted in the same thing. If you take care of something, you're paying attention to it. You're literally paying attention.
No. When you pay attention to things, you celebrate them, right?
You can. You don't have to. I don't think you have to celebrate something to pay attention to it.
Well, like, okay, what are you doing otherwise? Like,
I mean, where are you distinguishing between the taking care and the paying attention? Like, why are those different for you?
Well, the taking care is out of basically a maintenance function, right? So, so that's like, for example, right? Like if I want to have servants or slaves, right? Like I need to have a place for them to sleep. I need to have food that they can eat, right? Like maybe I need to give them spare time, whatever, right? Like,
but all of that demands your attention, surely.
No.
Of course, if you were to build living quarters for them and get them food, you're paying attention.
No, they can do that themselves.
But then you're not taking care of. I guess, whatever. I don't want to get hung up on that one small point.
No, but why are they serving? Right? Like they are serving so that the higher can do the higher thing.
Right.
Right.
And then the higher thing says, look there at who's serving.
No. No, the higher thing gathers glory and the lower thing participates in the glory of the high.
I think that I think in order for the higher to exist and it to not break down and not to become a tyranny, and so that you in some sense get stuck in some sort of a Marxist revolution, that if the king is to maintain his authority, has to pay attention and take care of the servants. And if he does not do so,
he can't. He's one person.
What do you mean?
It's physically not possible.
I don't know. I think so. I think that the king has to pay attention to the servants. He has to see. I see those at the lowest level, and I understand that they're actually holding the whole thing together.
Yes, he has to have that awareness, right?
Okay, but then once he has that awareness,
and he has to
acts
take
in accordance with it.
Which means what? Like I want to have the practical implication.
Let's see. So a good example is what you see in the Old Testament in terms of, the having to leave the margins or the edges of the fields left for those who are the lowest in society.
Mhm.
And it's recognizing that in order for the center to hold, our boundaries cannot be absolutized. And if they are, it'll ultimately undermine the thing that's at the center. And
I
so
agree.
you need a balance of porous and defined boundaries so that the center can hold. And
I
so
also agree.
so there's nothing directly and selfishly incentivized for the king to do that, other than if he has faith in this pattern at a higher level, which I think is faith in the good,
Okay, I
and
agree.
that's what keeps him from being a tyrant.
I also still
And you
agree.
see this in
But how is he paying attention to those people?
well, he's upholding he's responsible. So authority, you're responsible for all the things below you.
I agree.
There's an ownership there, and so the laws, right? If you have a law that allows for that, through the law in making sure it
But
maintains and
but but, he,
remains
but
enforced.
he's adhering to the principle. He's not having an actual attention for the individual.
Why does he have to have an actual attention towards the
Well,
individual?
like because if that like then he's not attending to these people. He's attending to ruling or
But it's
whatever.
all
Like,
done through
but like he's
hierarchies
now
of
in a
participation.
no, but now he's in an abstraction. Like he's no longer in
But I
the
don't think a
relationship.
hierarchy of participation is necessarily an abstraction. So if I
No, like
if
it doesn't have to be. I agree, but
if I send my cousin a letter in the mail and the mailman delivers it, it doesn't mean that the mailman gave him a letter. I gave him the letter. I just used hierarchies of participation in order for it to actually receive that. And so if the king in some sense is paying attention to the people, yeah, he's not going around to each peasant and but I think it trickles down in an important way.
no, but I'm making the opposite case, right? Like I'm making the case that if he would pay attention to the peasant, he couldn't rule.
Okay. Like you're saying
Right?
individually.
Yeah. Well, yes. Right. Like that's why I was
Okay.
using the
I'm
servant. That's why I was using the example of the servant, right? Because the servant is something that you're in direct relationship with, and the peasant not necessarily, right?
okay,
And
that's fair.
and, and so like that doesn't mean that there's not like holidays or whatever where the servants get attention, right? Or they get free or
Well,
whatever. Like
that's significant though, because a
no, yeah,
holiday.
I agree, right? But fine. But now there's an asymmetry,
Agreed, agreed.
right?
And I just want to reiterate that I believe that opposites are asymmetrical. I don't think there's
Okay.
any opposites that are symmetrical. So that's an important qualifier because I remember that was some part of our discussion online. I agree
Okay,
with you.
that's fascinating because you classified men and women as opposite.
They are opposites, but they're not symmetrical.
Um,
I do not think man and women are symmetrical.
okay, but okay
And I don't think you
now
think so either,
what
right?
what like okay, is there something that is symmetrical?
Like any opposite that is symmetrical, is that what you're saying?
No, anything.
I don't really understand this question. What do you mean anything?
Well, like according to your definition, if I expand that, symmetry doesn't exist.
I mean, symmetry as an idea exists.
Yeah, fair enough. I agree.
Whether it has an actual practical implication in the world, I don't know.
Well, what you're basically stating, right, in for me at least, is that everything is unique, right?
Yes, right.
And because everything is unique, you can't compare it to the other, because like the other is not that, right?
But
And it's like
you can compare it to the other because there's something like a through line.
you yeah, but then there like when like at what point do you have symmetry? Like isn't this just matter of resolution, because like I can say, right, like you're a captain in the army and he's a captain, like that's symmetrical. Like they both hold the same office, so they're the same.
Right, but that's why they're not opposites. I'm saying opposites are not.
Well, but they
not
are opposites.
symmetrical.
I can make them opposites. I can draw a boundary between
Okay,
them.
and if you draw that line, they're all of a sudden then they're not asymmetrical on that boundary. So what makes them opposite then? One of them comes from Norway, another one from Finland. Like
for example, or the one is at position 3 and the other one is position 4 in the army. Like I don't know. Like
okay,
Like
right.
there can just be a physical position, right? Like
right. Okay, I understand what you're saying. So I'm saying though that if you're in some sense their numerical unit, if that's the thing that you're appealing to as the through line that makes them different, makes them opposite, then that's the way in which they're asymmetrical.
yeah, okay.
Do you see? Like, I guess I don't know.
Okay. You know what Vervaeke said, right? There's an infinite way in which things are similar, and there's an infinite way in which things are dissimilar, right?
Correct.
Which also makes it not interesting, right? Because like, okay, like this is a universe,
right? But this is where relevance realization comes in. That
right.
Certain things, in terms of their how similar they are and how different than they are, become relevant to you according to your values and your purposes in the world. And so
right.
I agree with you. I'm not just trying to explore opposites for the hell of it.
That's why I go to the purpose the whole time, right? Because like
I have no problem with
you
going
is
through the
the only
purpose.
thing that matters, right?
Like I have no problem with that. I think in some sense you can't even have opposites without the purpose.
Right.
Right.
But also like
I don't want to just get rid of them, because it's just not the case experientially that they are never gotten rid of. That's literally the only point. And I don't want to be put into a position where I'm defending something I don't feel, because it's just.
But okay, so maybe this is where we're differentiating, right? Because when you say I don't want to get rid of them, like what I'm hearing is they have an eternal truth or existence.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that they.
Well, then you should get rid of them. I don't even
know what you necessarily mean by that. All I'm saying is that they they exist. They're a part of my experience.
No, but okay, but
so whether they have eternal existence, I don't know. But they're
no,
here.
But okay, but like then we can just rephrase that, right? It's like they don't exist. They appear to me as a consequence of my purpose.
So you don't think appearances are real?
No, like I think that the existence to you is a consequence of your purpose, right? And I think that's if we want to use like how Christ unites things, right? Mm-hmm. He's basically saying your purpose sucks. Like you have the wrong will. Right.
Basically,
right. And so that's the whole point, right? Like you're wrong. You're a muppet. Like get over it. And you have to die to be reborn. Like that's all there is to it. And so when you say, well, I want to reserve this reality, right? Like I'm literally saying, well, the whole point of the story is to get rid of it so that the right thing can happen.
I'm not even against that.
Yeah,
but if the whole point is to get rid of it, it implies that it's there.
No, it implies that that's the thing that's blocking you from communion with God. That's what it implies. Like it's literally satanic. Like I'm telling you, and I'll keep saying it. Like because I don't know how you can walk up to that line and not take the next step.
I don't know. It's like I said to you at the beginning. I've found.
Yes. There's gods that you can worship that provide things to you, right? Like Satan will provide things to you if you worship.
So you think because I think that opposites exist, even though I'm saying that the whole point is for them to be dissolved, you think that
Yeah.
that's satanic?
Yes. Like I think
The Bible
what
says that. I guess that's just what I don't understand. Just like the Bible just
so
presents.
let me rephrase it, right? It's like if you have water that flows, right? And you create a bump in the middle, right? You
A
disrupt the
boat?
flow, a bump,
Oh, a bump. Okay, yeah.
right? Like a rock.
Yeah.
Then you disrupt the flow of water, right? So if the water is the will of God, right? And you have the bump, then you disrupt the manifestation of the will of God. Does that mean that you can't manifest His will? No, you can. You can still participate in God's will, right? You're just frustrated in your participation, right? And like that frustration in the participation is the satanic part, right? Now, what do you do with that, right? Like you can say, well, I'm okay with that. Or you
Well,
can say, no, like like that's not the way it's supposed to be.
yeah, but that would require me to see that that's not the way it's supposed to be, and I don't see that.
No,
So
that would require you to have faith and to believe me. And only then, right? Only after that acceptance, you can look back and see that I was right or that I was wrong.
I don't know. I can't respond to that because I can't. I'm not going to try to back my way out of it.
You shouldn't take my word.
Usually, an argument comes to an end when someone's called Satan. Not that you're calling.
No,
I
I think
position
Satan is
satanic.
working
I
in
don't know what
everybody.
I'm supposed to do from there.
No, okay. So first of all, right? Don't trust me, right? Go to your priest, right? Like ask him, right? Like I have this opposition thing. Should I maintain this thing as something that I value, right? Because like you do value it because you're having this conversation.
Of course, right.
Right. And so that's my objection, right? Like I can put things in opposition, right? But I don't have any emotional attachment to that at all. Like I don't value it. Like it's just a tool.
But
Right?
I'm
Like,
arguing, I value it because I'm arguing that it is a tool. And I think it's important because it's true that it's a tool. It's important that it's true. So I think this is the closest we've been, what you just said there.
okay.
You're saying that you don't value it, but I'm saying I value it in the sense that it's true as a tool. That's all I'm saying.
Well, okay, but how
So
do
it's
you know?
valuable to me because tools are valuable. Tools are valuable. And so therefore,
No, not necessarily.
well, they are. I mean, they
No,
are for me.
but that's my argument. Okay, but that's my argument, right? Like the tool, like tools are not necessarily good, right? Like if you hold a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So like that hammer is not good because it makes things nails. Right? And like
Okay.
that's the argument that I'm making, right? Like you're like, okay, like I have this hammer. Look at my cool hammer. And I'm like, no, like let that hammer go.
I got some nails that need hammering. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, well, I know. And so maybe you should find out what those nails are first, but but yeah, no, like for real, right? Like I think you should ask your priest, and you should like put this in front of him and say, see what he thinks, right? Like does he agree with me? Does he disagree with me? Does he agree with me and say, well, it doesn't matter, right? Because that could also be an option, right? Like you're not ready or whatever. Like those things are fine, right? And like I think that's, I don't know, like some resolution to the tension. And to provide further resolution, I'm gonna start closing it down, down a
Yeah,
little
no.
bit.
Well, I think to just to respond to that, I think, I mean, just to provide some context, like I wanted to, you were bringing up some good points, and I was trying to, in some sense, understand your position, and felt like maybe part of the language was the thing that was kind of keeping us from, because it can be hard in really short tweets to kind of capture these
Yeah.
complex ideas. So I worried that was the problem, and so I felt like maybe a conversation, maybe we can be like, oh, okay, we actually agree. I think I better understand we don't agree, which is it is what it is that we don't agree. But I still think it's helpful. I mean, I think it was helpful to have the conversation, at least for me.
Mhm. Well,
Definitely helped me reflect on
so
these things.
the way I look at this, right, and the way that I see the good, and this is the good that I'm trying to pursue with having conversations like this, is right. Like we circumambulate it, right?
Right.
This
Exactly. Right.
tension, right?
Yep.
And it's
Yep.
like, okay, like is this tension that is between us? Is this actually pointing towards a thing? And like, in other words, is it real? Right? Like, does it have reality, this tension, or is this just a
That's it.
frustration in not properly understanding what the other says, right? Like I think we've come to the place that you said, right? Like I want to hold on to this, right? So you have a certain attachment and a certain value that you ascribe to this tool, and I'm saying like no, right? Like I'm not saying like you should never put things in opposition, but it's at the end of something, and therefore you don't worry about it, right? Like it will basically appear when it has to, right? Like when God tells you to, like, okay, that is in opposition to that, you're like, I guess so, I'll deal with it, right? That's basically my attitude.
Mm.
Um, and so yeah, like I think for me it was valuable to see, right? Because like you have a way more nuanced position than a lot of people, right? So I'll give you a compliment for that, right? Like uh, and you recognize in some sense the danger and the frustration that can come from putting things in opposition, right?
Definitely. Yeah. Right.
And you also recognize that there is a connection to the satanic nature of things, right?
Right.
And um, and I think that's really valuable to show that, right? Like to
Right.
show that there's at least agreement around that. Yeah, we're all at different places in our lives, right? So like,
Right.
what do we do with that knowledge? That is, yeah, I can't help you there because like you have to live it, right? And you've been referencing your experience, right? Like you have to deal with that. I don't. So
Right. Right.
like,
Yeah. No, that's a good summation. I think in some sense that's some of the conclusions I drew as well, in terms of the ways in which we kind of can find a shared outlook on a lot of those things you just brought up. And I really, I think this might be a bad way to leave on, but I want you to keep on believing what you believe, because I
mhm.
actually think that's better in some sense.
Oh, okay.
And because I don't, for me, it's not like I wasn't trying to convince you of something, because
Mhm.
I don't I don't think that would be necessarily, perhaps if I mean, if that happened, it happened, but I in some sense, everything that you articulated really well is extremely important, and I didn't think anything that you said was wrong.
Mhm.
And I think the value of the position you took and the things that you hold as important and valuable in the way you articulated them is really needed. So, I mean, I think keep going on that. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I hope you'll join me on the other side of the line and stop opposing. But no, like I think that was yeah, that's well said, and yeah, like I hope you'll see what I see someday, and yeah, like God will reveal at his own time, and I hope I planted the seed. That's all I
Maybe.
can hope for.
Yeah, maybe.
And like maybe in the comment section, other people can plant their seeds and add to the cultivation of this garden.
Right. Right. Awesome.
So yeah, like, do you have any last words?
No, probably just glad we had the conversation, and yeah, it's good to connect with people in a way
Thank you.
that's more getting at the real rather than through Twitter. So I'm glad, because sometimes I'll ask someone to kind of, who I'm having a conversation with, to connect online, and then they don't want to, which is fine. But this is better, is what I'm saying.
Okay, well, that's great. Everybody, thanks for watching, and I hope to see everybody again soon. And maybe you want to have another conversation that's, I don't know, or
Yeah.
some other subject, which
Yeah,
probably will
maybe.
return to this anyway, but whatever.
Yeah, right.
Okay, see ya.